I'm Maddie. It's been a while since I left that apartment, but the feeling of that final moment still lingers. I remember standing in the middle of my new, empty apartment, the silence wrapping around me like a blanket. It was a different kind of quiet, one that was full of possibility rather than the heavy, suffocating silence of the old place. I was in my early 30s, and my life had seemed so put together just a few months ago. I had a small apartment that always smelled of coffee and the faint scent of laundry detergent. I drove a car that wasn't flashy but started every time, and all my bills were on autopay. I even had a modest retirement account that I contributed to, even when it meant saying no to those once-in-a-lifetime trips my friends invited me on. I was the sensible one, the reliable friend with jumper cables in the trunk and a backup phone charger in my bag. People saw me as the rock, the one who could handle anything without panicking. But lately, that label had started to feel more like a prison. I was in a relationship with Leo. He was 32 and worked in marketing. He had this easy charm that made people around him smile. We'd been together for 5 years and had been living together for 2. Our relationship had started off so well. We met through mutual friends at a music festival. We were yelling over the loud music to have a conversation, and somehow, that chaos turned into a deep connection. On the good days, it was effortless. But then, about 6 months ago, things started to change. Leo would make plans with me, like having dinner with my parents on a Friday or planning a weekend just for us. He'd promised to be home early to watch a show I liked. And then, like clockwork, he'd cancel. It was always something, a work emergency, last-minute drinks with the team, or his friend Lily going through a tough time and needing him. At first, I understood. 1 cancellation was fine, 2 were annoying, but when it became 3 or more a month, I knew it wasn't just bad luck. It was a choice. The breaking point came over a cabin trip. I'd been planning it for weeks. It was a small, cozy place in the mountains. I took Friday off work, booked a nearby restaurant, and made a detailed packing list. Leo had been talking for months about wanting to get away from it all and unplug. I thought I was giving him exactly what he wanted. On Thursday evening, I came home exhausted, my laptop bag digging into my shoulder. I had a mental list of all the things I still needed to do before we left. Leo was on the couch, phone in hand, grinning at the screen. The TV was on but muted. He didn't look up right away. "Hey," I said, dropping my bag by the door. "Are you all packed for tomorrow?" He glanced up, and for a split second, I saw something flicker across his face. It was either guilt or calculation, and then he pasted on a sympathetic look. "Lily called," he started. I took a slow breath. Okay. Her boyfriend broke up with her out of the blue. She's a mess. The girls are putting together a last-minute trip to the beach to cheer her up, and they're leaving tomorrow morning. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. "Everyone?" I asked. "Yeah, apparently. They really want me there." Lily asked if I could come. She said it would help to have a guy around for a different perspective. "Everyone except me," I said. He frowned. "You hate the beach?" "I don't hate the beach. I hate sunburns and sand in my shoes." "That's different." I took a deep breath. "Leo, we've had this cabin booked for over a month." He rubbed the back of his neck, his eyes darting back to his phone. "I'm sorry, but Lily is really going through it. She needs her friends." "Lily has plenty of friends. What she doesn't have is a lease with you or a weekend you promised to your girlfriend," I shot back. His jaw tightened. "It's just one weekend." "It's not just one weekend," I said, my voice rising. "You bailed on dinner with my parents last month, skipped movie night for drinks with your team, and canceled that brunch we planned because of work. It's always something, Leo." He stood up, still clutching his phone. "I'm allowed to be there for people when they need me. I'm not saying you're not. I'm saying I'm tired of being the thing you fit in when nothing else is happening." I'm tired of being plan B. His face flushed. That's not fair. What's not fair? Is it me rearranging my life for plans you treat like suggestions? I said quietly. He threw his free hand up. Oh my God, Maddie, you're so controlling lately. Lily is heartbroken. I'm trying to be a decent human being, and you're making this all about you. I let out a brittle laugh. I'm making this about the pattern, Leo. Every time I think we're a priority, you remind me I'm just another option on your calendar. His eyes hardened. You don't control what I do with my life. Those words were like a cold splash of water. For a long moment, I just looked at him, at the man I'd built a life around, who was looking at me like I was the problem. You're absolutely right, I said, my voice strangely calm. I don't control what you do with your life. He was taken aback by the sudden shift in my tone. So, you understand why I need to go? I understand perfectly. Have a good trip, I said. Then I picked up my bag and walked into the bedroom, closing the door gently behind me. I could hear him moving around the apartment, opening and closing drawers, and finally, the front door clicked shut. My phone buzzed later with a message from him, staying at Lily's tonight. We're leaving early tomorrow. I'll be back Monday evening. Love you. I stared at the message until the text bubble blurred. I didn't respond because in that moment, I realized he was right. I didn't control what he did with his life, but I still had a say in what I did with mine. That night, I hardly slept. I lay in the bed we'd picked out together, the one I'd paid for and he'd simply complimented. The streetlights outside cast pale lines across the walls. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his words, "You don't control what I do with my life." The old me would have texted him something conciliatory by midnight, saying I overreacted and that we'd figure it out. But I didn't. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, I gave up on trying to sleep and got out of bed. The apartment felt different already, too quiet and too honest. Leo's laptop was on the coffee table, closed but not locked. It shouldn't have been a temptation, but it felt like a dare. For years, I'd been proud of being a trusting partner, the kind of person who didn't snoop. But standing there in the half-dark, I realized I'd been so focused on trusting him that I'd stopped asking if he was still worthy of that trust. Before I could think, my hand reached out and flipped the laptop open. The screen blinked awake without a password prompt. Of course, he wasn't careful because he never thought I'd actually look. I hovered over the messaging app for a second. A small voice in my head said, "Last chance to be the bigger person." But another, colder voice answered, "You already tried that. He just took more space for himself." I clicked on the messaging app, and the thread with Lily was near the top. I opened it, hoping to see some last-minute chaos that would prove me wrong. Instead, I found 3 weeks of messages about the beach trip, screenshots of beach houses, discussions about who was bringing what, and a forwarded email about the rental dated the same week I booked the cabin. One message from Lily was highlighted green with Leo's reply, "So, you're definitely coming, right? We locked in the house for the 18th to 21st. It's going to be so fun. And Ava's in." Ava. His ex-girlfriend, the one he'd sworn was in the past. In their separate thread, their conversations were full of inside jokes that never included me, long rants about how I didn't understand him, and Ava's sympathetic replies. She'd say things like, "She sounds really controlling lately. Are you happy though? That's what matters." 2 days ago, Ava had messaged, "Can't wait for this weekend. The beach house is going to be perfect. We'll finally have time to really talk without distractions." Leo had replied, "I know. I've needed this for so long." I stared at the messages until my eyes burned. The truth I'd been avoiding for months was right there in black and white. He wasn't just being a good friend to Lily. He was using Lily's breakup as a cover for a trip he'd been planning with his ex for weeks, a trip he'd prioritized over our cabin trip. Something in me went very quiet. It wasn't rage, it was a cold, clean feeling. I closed the laptop slowly and sat back on the couch. I knew exactly how much the couch cost, how many extra shifts I'd worked and dinners I'd skipped to buy the TV on the wall, the table by the window, and the bed in the hallway. I'd been underwriting our life together, and now I could see I'd also been underwriting his fantasy life with Ava. Over the next 48 hours, I made a plan. On Friday at lunch, I called a property I'd bookmarked months ago. It was a smaller one-bedroom apartment across town in a decent neighborhood, affordable on my single income. I asked if it was still available. By the time I finished my sandwich, I'd submitted the application, and by late afternoon, it was approved. On Saturday morning, I signed the lease and handed over a security deposit that made my stomach clench. It was a lot of money, but it was also my ticket to freedom. On Saturday evening, I called my brother. "Hey," he said. "What's up?" "I need a favor. Can you help me move on Monday?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Move what?" he asked. "Everything that's mine," I replied. He didn't ask a lot of questions. He just said, "Tell me when and where. I'll bring the truck." I also texted 2 friends I trusted, friends who didn't have any shared loyalties with Leo. When I told them I was leaving and asked for help, they both replied almost instantly, saying they'd be there. On Sunday, I made lists of what was mine and what was his. My things included the couch I'd bought before we moved in, the TV and entertainment center, the bed and mattress, the kitchen table and chairs, the good pots and pans, the coffee maker, and my clothes, books, and personal items. His things were a few mismatched dishes from college, a sagging bookshelf he'd brought from his last place, some posters he claimed were vintage art, his clothes, his gaming console, and his decorations. I wasn't stealing, I was separating. On Monday morning, the doorbell rang at 9 o'clock sharp. My brother stepped inside, took one look at my face, and didn't ask where Leo was. My friends followed, looking around with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Okay," my brother said, clapping his hands. "What's going?" I pointed to my things. The couch, the TV, the bed, the table, anything I paid for or brought in. We moved efficiently. It didn't feel like I was destroying my life, it felt like I was taking it back piece by piece. The bed went first, the mattress awkward through the hallway. The couch followed, leaving a pale imprint on the carpet. The TV came down from the mount, showing a faint square of cleaner paint. By noon, the apartment looked wrong. All my things were loaded into the truck, strapped down, and ready to be taken to my new place. What was left inside only highlighted how much I'd contributed to our life together. His thrift store dishes were stacked on the counter, his posters leaned against the bare walls, and his clothes were folded in a closet that now held nothing of mine. While my brother did a last sweep for stray items, I sat at the kitchen counter and pulled out a notepad. I stared at the blank page for a moment, then I wrote. "Leo, you're right. I don't control what you do with your life, but I do control what I do with mine." I found the messages with Lily and Ava. "I know the beach trip was planned weeks before you told me about it. I know you've been lying to me for months. I'm not going to argue about whether what you did counts as cheating. I just know I'm done sharing a home with someone who treats me like a backup plan. The lease is in both our names, but everything that was mine is now at my new place. You can keep the apartment if you want it. The rent is due on the 1st. Don't contact me. We're done. Maddie." I set the note in the center of the counter and slid my key from my ring. It felt heavier than it should have for such a small piece of metal. I placed it on top of the note. When I stepped out of the apartment for the last time, I didn't look back. I just listened to the soft click of the door and thought, "You wanted space, Leo. This is the most honest space I can give you." The first night in my new apartment was strange. It wasn't lonely or sad, it was just quiet. A different kind of quiet than the old apartment. The silence there had felt like something was about to collapse, but this silence felt open and full of possibility. My phone started buzzing that evening. Leo had called 17 times and sent 12 text messages. The previews were full of anger and confusion. Where is everything, Maddie? What the hell? Did you take all our stuff? This isn't funny. Answer me. You can't just steal everything. Maddie, please call me. We need to talk. I can explain about Ava. It's not what you think. Please don't do this. Where am I supposed to sleep? I let the screen go dark. A few minutes later, it buzzed again. I'm calling the police. I blocked his number. My heart didn't race, instead, my heartbeat slowed. I felt relieved. He'd lied to me for months, lied through I love you, and lied while texting Ava. He could call the police all he wanted. I hadn't taken anything that wasn't mine, and I'd finally taken back my peace. That night, he started calling from other numbers, probably his friends' phones. I blocked each one. The next morning, my former landlord called. Maddie, this is Martin. Leo is here in my office saying you removed all the furniture from the apartment. Is this something I need to be concerned about? I could hear Leo pacing in the background, feeding the landlord half-truths. Everything I removed was mine, purchased by me before or during the lease. I'm emailing you formal notice to terminate my part of the lease today, I said calmly. The landlord sighed. He says he can't afford the rent alone. That's not my responsibility anymore, I replied. A muffled voice shouted something in the background, but I didn't flinch. 30 minutes later, I sent the formal termination notice and paid my half of next month's rent. After that, the apartment and any problems were his. Around noon, Lily called. I'd forgotten to block her. Maddie, you need to calm down and talk to Leo, she said sharply. I don't think so, I replied. You can't just destroy someone's life because of a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? The beach trip was planned weeks ago. He lied to me about it. He only lied because he didn't know how to tell you he needed space. He had plenty of space every time he canceled on me and chose someone else's plans over ours. Lily hesitated, then said, nothing happened between him and Ava. She's just a friend. I smiled without warmth. Ava. Silence. Ah, there it is. You should stop talking. You're not the friend to call here. Before she could say anything else, I hung up and blocked her. By evening, Leo escalated. There was a heavy knock on my new door at 9:04 p.m. Maddie, I know you're in there. I sat on my couch, my legs pulled under me, perfectly still. The knocking got louder. Maddie, come on. We need to talk about this. You can't just disappear. You can't take everything. His voice cracked on the last word. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother. He's calling me now. Says you abandoned him. You want me to come over? I typed back, no, he'll leave. The knocking went on for nearly 20 minutes, and then I heard footsteps walking away and a door slamming. Silence returned. I exhaled. It wasn't relief or guilt, it was just confirmation. The next day at work, my mom called. Honey, what is going on? Leo's mother just called me in tears. I explained everything slowly and carefully, the repeated cancelled plans, the laptop, Ava's messages, and the beach trip deceit. My mom listened without interrupting. When I finished, she exhaled deeply. So, you took all the furniture? She asked softly. I took my furniture, the things I bought and paid for. He still has all his belongings, I corrected. It seems harsh, she murmured. But Maddie, I understand. Your father did something similar when his first marriage ended. He took everything that was his and left her with an empty house. I used to think it was cruel, but now I see it differently. Sometimes you need a clean break. A clean break. That's exactly what I needed. Unfortunately, the internet wasn't as understanding as my mother. On Thursday, Leo posted a long, emotional story on social media about how his girlfriend of 5 years had stolen everything while he was away helping a heartbroken friend. He painted himself as the victim.